Good morning, everyone. I, CMLE Day, on behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee ICAI, welcome all the participants in today's webcast Ignite Innovation, Transform Your Ideas with Creative Thinking. I welcome to today's resource person CA Rakesh Singh and others present over here. Now, let me introduce our speaker for today. CA Rakesh Kumar Singh is a qualified chartered accountant with over 4 years of post qualification experience, currently working in the corporate security and internal audit function in the industry. Along with his core audit and compliance expertise, Rakesh has built strong capabilities in digital branding, content strategy, and audience engagement. He is passionate about simplifying complex branding concepts and translating them into practical, actionable frameworks that professionals can apply in their careers and businesses. Over time, he has developed a deep interest in the intersection of branding, trust building, and emerging digital platforms, an area especially relevant for finance and accounting professionals looking to stand out in an increasingly competitive landscape. We welcome you, sir, and we are eager to hear from you.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks for such a warm introduction. So, before beginning with today's session on this topic, at the outset, let me thank the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee of the ICAI for bringing such a kind and quality programs for our members, both CA, chartered accountants, as well as non-CAs who must have joined or who may have joined this meeting, this webinar today. And also, I want to thank CA Jayacharya sir, Chairman PSEC ICAI, and CA Abhay Chhajat sir, Vice Chairman PSEC ICAI. I'll be sharing my screen and we can discuss on this topic. So let me know once it's visible to you all.
It's not visible yet, sir.
Is it visible now?
Not.
Sure.
It's visible now, sir. It's
Oh, sure.
visible. Yeah.
I clicked on stop sharing.
Sure.
Right. So good afternoon, everyone. Today's topic is Ignite Innovation, Transform Your Ideas with Creative Thinking. First of all, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. And our agenda here today is to make this webinar as much as interactive as we can. So I'll ask you some questions, and I'll request you all to put your comments or any kind of questions that you might have during the course of this webinar into the chat. And since there is a lag of around 30 seconds to 1 minute, so I'll wait for a minute for your responses. And looking forward to this webinar. So first of all, let me ask you a simple question. What do you mean by innovation? So what comes to your mind when you hear the word innovation, or let's say creative thinking or creativity? What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear these words? And Manish ji and Millie, I'll request you all to just let me know what's there in the comments.
Sure, sir. So we got a response saying something new to do something different and unique.
Hmm. And that is for innovation, right?
Yes, yes, for innovation.
Right. So that's a great response. Let's find out what is innovation and why it matters. So innovation is something which transforms ideas into tangible values like product, services, or processes. So innovation is something like, so if there is a product, is there another way to make this product, manufacture this product, or some kind of service? Can it be made better? Can we add some kind of value to create an impact? So this is what innovation is, rethinking, redesigning something. That is what innovation is. So what innovation includes basically, so innovation includes creativity. So we have some creative ideas, thoughts around, let's say, a product, and we are gonna talk about that two sample products that I have taken into example for this particular webinar, and we'll talk in detail around that. So how a product was changed, how creativity born, how it was executed, and how it created an impact, leading to an overall innovation. And many a times we ask ourselves why innovation is required. I mean, so if there is a product working in a certain way, or if we are performing a task in a certain way, so let it be so. Why there is a need for innovation? Why we want to do something differently? This kind of questions often comes to our mind. I mean, it comes to my mind, and it must be coming to your mind as well. So the simple answer for all this question is innovation is the driving force behind progress. So if we are doing certain thing in a certain way, and if it is kept on being repeated, it is like a robotic process. So there is nothing kind of creativity, we won't be progressing as a society. So suppose if we take an example of the ancient cavemen. So like we all must be knowing that fire was discovered by the cavemen in the ice age, before the ice age. So what led to that discovery or innovation? It was like we wanted to progress further. So we wanted, then we discovered fire and so on so forth. Because of the innovation, we were discovering something new. So that was because of the question why and what and where, how. So these are the questions that we that people ask themselves, which leads to innovation. And so it matters. And if you'll see, there have been world changing innovations, like the best of the ones are electricity. So just imagine your life, just imagine our lives without electricity. What would it have been? I mean, we wouldn't be connected together. We won't be having this webinar. So I am sitting somewhere else. You all are sitting across India, or maybe across globe, and you are attending this webinar. This is all because of the electricity. Then comes the internet. Then comes this laptop, Wi-Fi, modem, routers, etc. So this is all the result of innovation. And innovation, and it was all because of one creative idea, that we need this, we want to simplify things, we want to progress as a society, and this led to innovation. So again, when we hear the word innovation and creativity, people often think that this is not related to our curriculum as a chartered accountants or as a working professional. How does it matter? Why innovation or creativity matters in our field? So we are no scientist, we are no artist. So why does creativity matters to us, and how can we be creative? What kind of creativity or innovations can we bring in our day to day task? We'll be talking about this in this webinar on a later stage, as to why it matters to chartered accountants as well. It is not only limited to scientists, because again, the onus for innovation is not only limited to scientists. I mean, innovation and creativity is nothing, not only limited to discovery of or inventing a new project, discovery of something, inventing new project. It can also be related to services that we are already rendering to our clients, or in the organization that we are working. So innovation and creativity applies in as much as what holds true for scientists, it holds true for us as a chartered accountants giving services to clients or working in industry. And that's what we are going to talk about in the coming slides. So before moving further, what needs to be done is we need to understand the difference between creativity, invention, and innovation. Many times we think that all these three terms are same or similar. They are interrelated. However, there are differences between these three topics. Coming first with the creativity. So creativity is what we talk about generating and creating new ideas. So if we are thinking of something, if we are thinking of doing a particular task in some new way, that is creativity. Creativity is like generating ideas. So that is creativity. Invention roots from creativity. So we thought of an idea, and that idea leads to a creation of new product or a process or a better way of doing something which didn't existed before. So that is invention. Invention is creating altogether something new, and that roots from creativity. Because for for us to create anything new or to perform a service better, we need to have idea, we need to generate an idea, and that idea should be new and original. Because invention is something which was not there before. It could be reinvention of a process, doing a process better, inventing a new product altogether. That could be invention. Now what is innovation? Innovation is redesigning or re-engineering something to make it to make it better. So suppose there is a product, or we are doing services a particular way, we are giving services in a particular way. Innovation is redefining it. How can we make it better? So this is how we can differentiate between invention and innovation. Now the focus, when it comes to focus, creativity focuses on thinking different thing. We imagine different possibilities. So if we take an example for relevant for us chartered accountants, so when we do a sampling, so sampling can be done in a lot of ways. So we can use creativity there as well. Many a times when I was working, I was doing my articleship from a mediocre firm, mid-sized firm. So there we used to do sampling basis the 80-20 rule, the Pareto rule, which generally the chartered accountants use or the financial professionals use. So what we do, we used to take we used to cover 80% of the value in the 20% of the sample. So if our sample size is, let's say, 25 or 40 samples we are taking, so we made sure that the 25 or 40 samples, which is 20% of the PO, for instance, represents 80% of the value of PO. So that's one way of thinking. That's one way of doing it. When I moved to Big Four, post qualifying as a chartered accountant, there we used to do differently the samplings. So there was then again a creativity. So it was not only limited to the Pareto rule. We used to do sampling basis the same supplier, different rates, then same material, same supplier, different rates, different quantities, then same material, different suppliers, same rate or different rate within a month. So this is how we can relate creativity in our day-to-day life working as a chartered accountants in, let's say, industry or firms. So when we do sampling, it is not only related to invention. Again, I'll reiterate this. It is not only related to inventing a new product, or you need to launch a new services or something else. Creativity, we can do creativity or generate ideas in our day-to-day life, day-to-day testing, day-to-day services that we are rendering. In that aspect also we can introduce creativity. Now the focus in invention is turning the idea that was generated during the creativity phase into something tangible. And whenever we talk about invention, invention is always for the first time. So any kind of product or services that was there before, that is not invention, that is innovation again. So invention is when we create something for the first time. In case of innovation, that is execution plus adoption plus impact. Now the examples of creativity, like I mentioned, so these are the examples that we'll be talking in the coming slide. So there's a reusable adhesive that we do, post-it notes or the sticky notes that we say. So there's an interesting story behind it, how the idea originated. The sticky note as we know today, what led to its origination. So the scientist, Dr. Silver, who was creating the sticky note, he wanted to create something else, but the result was sticky notes. We'll come to that later in the later slides. Now, an example of invention is Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb. And that's also an interesting story because everyone knows that light bulb was invented by Thomas Alva Edison, but it took him like 10,000 trials for the light bulb to be invented. So that's persistence in innovation, in invention. Now coming to innovation, again the post-it notes that we are talking about, or the Dyson. This is also an interesting story that we'll be talking about in the later slides around the Dyson product. So Dyson, as we know, it's not only related to hair dryer for which it is famous. So Dyson invented from something else. So we'll talk about it. Now the key point in creativity is about the ideas. So there are a lot of ideas there. When we think, there are a lot of ideas to do something in a certain way, XYZ, but it doesn't mean that we need to do that, we need to fulfill that idea, or we need to go through that idea. There are ideas, they are born, but it is up to us whether we want to turn that idea into reality or let it so. So that is creativity. Creativity is all about generating ideas. If we are thinking further on that, then it will lead to invention or innovation. If so, that's how creativity is like a base for invention and innovation. Now this is an interesting story, the post-it note accident. So this sticky notes that we see as of today, how it was invented, how it came into action, how it is as is it's today. So there was a scientist, Dr. Silver. So he was working in M3, so 3M. He was working in 3M company, and as you know, there's a budget for research and development. Industry expands heavily because of research and development. Industry budgets a lot of money into research and development because it lets them to grow their top line as well as bottom line, as we all know. So that's a story of Dr. Silver. He wanted to create an adhesive which was super strong, something like Fevicol. So he wanted to create an adhesive which was super strong, that could help in sticking the woods or plies and so on so forth. So he wanted to invent something or introduce something that was super sticky, like of Fevicol. But when he was working on that project, the thing that he was able to make, it was not that adhesive, so it was not super strong. What was happening is, the adhesive that he invented, so it was kind of, it was able to stick on a surface, then it used to peel off, and then you can re-stick it onto some another surface. So it was reusable, re-adhesive was the thing, but it was not as strong. The company, the people he talked to, they all thought of it as a failed project. I mean, they were not interested because the objective was to create something else. They wanted to create a super adhesive, which was, they were able to stick it on, but what was created was something else, so they were not interested. And it went on the shelf. Went on the shelf means the idea was discarded altogether, no one was talking about it. So it went on like 5 6 years, until there was this another scientist, Fry, in the 3M company only. He was his colleague, Silver's colleague. So what he used to do, he used to go to church on Sundays, and he used to recite hymns, you know hymns, a kind of prayer that he used to recite to the people attending the church gathering on Sunday. The problem Dr. Fry went through was, so whenever he used to recite a hymn, there was a book open, and he used to read from it, and some kind of note, like we all post some kind of note, so he used to keep a note on that book. So what was happening with him was that note was, automatically falling off, and whenever he used to stick it off from that page, the page altogether went off. So he wasn't so it was a strong adhesive, or it used to fail. So there was nothing in between. Either it was strong, that would peel off the page as well, or it won't be there, it won't be sticking there on that page. So then he came to know about Dr. Silver's invention, and he thought, the scientist brain works in a different way, and he was able to connect the dots, that what Dr. Silver invented was not as strong, but it was strong enough to be there on that page, and to, you can remove it and re-stick it. And he used it, and he was surprised by the result, and he was as happy and excited. So Dr. Fry and Dr. Silver then relaunched their ideas, saying that this is sticky notes, and this is how it works. Then they launched it into the market. They tried to launching it into the market. The company 3M tried to launch it into the market, but it failed because the name of the product was not clear. First thing, it was not named as sticky note at that time or post it at that time. It was named something else, so it failed. What they did after that was they distributed this post-it notes to all the employees in the company. So what employees used to, they write down something, anything important or anything relevant or to dos or something like that, and they used to stick it on their desk where they used to sit. They used extensively in their stationery into their day-to-day life working. And then there was an advertisement by word of mouth. So the employees started talking about this with their friends, their relatives, and everyone. And soon this idea spread. After that, what they did, they renamed it as Post-it, and it was a huge success. So the shelves went empty after its launching, and there was a huge demand, and it was a huge success. So what we came to know from this idea, from this result, the post-it note accident, I want you all to think about it and let me know in the comments or in the chat box that what you think, what was the creativity here, what was the innovation here, and why post-it note once was a flop idea became a success. So I'll continue. So what I could so two cents that I can take from this example is, first thing, there was no fear of failure. Whenever scientists work or the R&D team works, so there is a predefined notion that they are not afraid of fear of failure. So first thing is that. And second thing that comes to my mind is connecting the dots, because Fry was able to connect the dots, and that went to the invention of this post-it note. Else we won't be having the sticky notes today that we are using in our day-to-day life. Moving on to the next example for today, that is Dyson vacuum. So Dyson, as we know today, Dyson is not only related to the
So for
blowers
your
or
last question, someone replied, it's user reach naming and use, and or thinking differently made post-it sticky note possible.
right. That's correct. And again, connecting what that user said, it's thinking differently is one thing. That's what scientists are paid for. Second is connecting the dots, and third, not being afraid of fear of failure. Now coming to the another example for today, this is Dyson's vacuum. So as I was saying, Dyson, as we know today, it is not only related to the blower or hair dryers. How Dyson came into existence, that's an interesting story. So Dyson is a surname of the British engineer. So he was an engineer, and he was using the vacuum. So vacuum for mopping and sucking the dust, like we use the vacuum cleaners, right? So he was using that. In the earlier eras, the problem with the vacuum was that when so it used to have a bag, and when they used to clean their rooms, uh, like how the vacuum works, it actually sucks out the dust, and it sucks out the dust So Dyson was working. So Dyson saw that example of sawmill, and he just talked to himself, why we can't build a vacuum cleaner around that using the same centrifugal force. And with that idea, the Dyson vacuum cleaner was born. So what he used, that he took an example of that sawmill, and when he created the Dyson vacuum cleaner, so how Dyson vacuum cleaner was different from the earlier vacuum cleaner. So earlier vacuum cleaners used to do, they suck the dust as well as air, and the bag was filling more often, and then their suction power become weak. Now how Dyson differentiated his product, he launched Dyson vacuum cleaner. And that so what was different in that vacuum cleaner was that when suction was there, so they only collected dust. So they suck out the air and dust together, then they, with the help of the centrifugal force, dust was collected into a separate bin, and the air was thrashed out, so it was thrown out. And so because of this innovation, the suction power remained the same, and it was helpful for the people. You don't need to change the bag again and again, that cost was eliminated. Now when he pitched that idea to the bankers, to the companies, they were not interested, because the bags were a recurring revenue for those companies. So what happened after that, Dyson, so a Japanese scientist saw that product, saw that innovation of Dyson, and he was very much interested into it. So he gave Dyson a platform, and it was launched in Japan as an exclusive product, or a high range product like we have Apple's today, because of its high price segment. So that's how Dyson vacuum cleaner were launched initially as a high cost product, and it was marketed brilliantly. And that led to, so that particular impact statement, or that statement, that how can we make this vacuum cleaner better, led to formulation of a company, Dyson Electricals. And now Dyson is not only, as we all know, Dyson is not only limited to um, vacuum cleaners. It is there in blowers, hair dryers, and everything, fans, electrical equipment. So that's how Dyson was born. And an interesting part about Dyson is that he has the longest prototype that he went through. Any engineer who went through a prototype. So before making a product, we make a prototype. So Dyson created like 5,000 odd prototypes, 5,071 odd prototypes before making a Dyson vacuum cleaner. So he used to work on that repetitively, day in day out, because he saw an idea, that idea from that sawmill that he saw, and he wanted to execute it into reality. He wanted to make it real, and that's how Dyson is known today. And Dyson then disrupted the industry, and he set new performance standards, new benchmark, and make that vacuum cleaner industry more competitive. Now, when we talk about innovation, so there are three types of innovations that people talk about. So there is incremental innovation, there is disruptive innovation, and then there is radical innovation. So incremental innovation is small, as the name suggests itself. It is small, continuous improvements in the existing product or services. So to make to make a product or services better, and we used to make an incremental amount of changes in that product. So that is incremental innovation. Disruptive, as the name suggests, it is a simpler, cheaper solution that changes the market. So it changes we change the product altogether. So that is disruptive. And radical and disruptive core idea is cheaper products. Radical is breakthrough innovation, something like of Dyson, which creates entirely new market. Now the characteristics of incremental innovation is, it is low risk, because we are making changes on a smaller scale. So, for instance, if we want to relate it with our CA curriculum or the chartered accountant, so suppose there's an company working on an ERP. Let's say they are using Tally. Now they want, and now the business, they are expanding into different geographies, and as the business is expanding, they want to. So ERP is no longer relevant for them, and they are not that Tally is no longer able to sustain or help their business. So now they are thinking of moving to another ERP, let's say Oracle or SAP. So if we take an example of incremental, so what they can do is, instead of moving altogether directly to let's say Oracle or SAP, they first move their product procure to pay process, P2P, entire P2P, or let's say billing process on Oracle. They waited, they were seeing that if it is working fine, or if it needs some kind of tweaks or changes. That is incremental. Disruptive is, they are with Tally only, or let's say instead of Tally they went to some other in-house made ERP which is cheap as compared to Oracle or SAP. Now radical is, they all together went moved their books from Tally to SAP or Oracle. So they so instead of moving it by process or process by process, they moved all together their books from Tally to Oracle. Now the examples that are relevant for us are, for instance, adding new feature to accounting software, or if we are in practice, improving audit templates. Disruptive is cloud-based audit tools because it is cheaper as compared to maintaining it in-house. So if we are working on a tool, let's say if we want to host a website, or if we want in storage, instead of having the data servers, we can put it on the cloud, and that is cost effective for us. And now radical is blockchain, or the AI, that is being a lot talked about in today's scenario for chartered accountants. Now, what is creative thinking? So, as we talked on creative thinking earlier, it is ability to think beyond conventional patterns. So, creativity leads to generation of new ideas, and that is the engine behind innovation. So, how we are living our life daily, on our day-to-day life, we are on the autopilot mode. So we are brushing on autopilot. So we know. So for instance, if I brush with my left hand. Many people who are right-handed, they brush with their right hand. So that is on autopilot mode. If you want to change it, if you want to put your brains while brushing, and if you want to focus on brushing, you need to change your hands. Instead of brushing with my left hand, if I'll brush with my right hand, my brain will be actively there. And that is how, so creative thinking is changing the way you are thinking, you know uh, being out of your comfort zone, taking. So creative thinking, what creative thinking, you know the underlying for creative thinking is to break the conventional pattern, and that's how we generate new ideas. So the core of creative thinking is thinking outside the box. So suppose there is a process that is being performed in a certain way. I'll tell you an example that recently happened with me. So we were doing a SOX testing for a US based client, and in that SOX testing there was a control around review of bank accounts. So the test steps were mentioned. So how we do the SOX testing, as you all may be aware, that there are test steps according to the COSO frameworks that control is designed. There is control description and everything, risk and everything put in place. So the test steps were, so what the test steps were, we have to obtain all the list of bank accounts, and we have to check whether the treasurer who was
The network is breaking.
third party.
Rakesh sir.
So, we are talking about the creative thinking. So there was a control around bank reconciliations and review of bank account signatories. So there were test steps mentioned. First was, we have to obtain the list of bank account from the treasurer, and treasurer has to review it. And we have to check if the treasurer has reviewed it, and we have to obtain what kind of access a particular person, let's say the employee as well as the third party, have around the bank accounts. So this was there in the test steps. So when I was uh, testing this particular control, before I tell you what I noticed, what I did differently, I want to take a moment and want to ask from you all, what would you have done differently, or did you notice something that was not there in this test step that I just now talked about? If you can put in the chat box. Okay. Yeah. So what I thought differently was, so these all test steps were there, but the basic question is, what gives anyone the power to sign on behalf of a company? That is a board resolution, right? So without a board resolution, how can, since a company being a legal entity, as we all know, it delegates its power, it operates through. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'll reiterate my question. So there is this control that I was testing as a part of SOX control, where we were reviewing the bank account signatories and how the review was being performed or not. So the test steps that were mentioned in that particular SOX control was, number one, that we have to obtain the list of all bank accounts that is there. Second, we have to see that the bank account signatories, both that company's employee as well as third party to whom that company has given the signing power, that was being reviewed by the treasurer. And the third is that we have to obtain from bank what all rights a particular employee or third party have with respect to the signing power that they had on behalf of that company. So this was in the third step. But this is not, so this was not enough. When I started testing that particular control, uh, something clicked in my mind. I used my creative thinking, and something clicked my mind that was not there in the test step. And that is my question. That is what I want to know from you all. That did you also notice something different? And if yes, can you put it down in the comments?
Yes, sir. We have to check whether the board authorized to do so with the certified copy of board of resolutions.
Perfect. So that is exactly, this is something that I also thought of. So this is the point. So as you all know, the company acts, company being a corporate legal entity, it is a, that is not a person, that is not a living human being. So in order to act, it gives its power to, it operates through the board of director, and then board of director via their board resolution appoints or authorizes a person to, act as a signatory on behalf of the company. So that was missing from that SOX testing test step.
So
And
a
I,
few more responses are there.
yeah,
Validity and limits of power of signing document authorizing those signatories to operate the bank account. We will also check the value of transaction to check the materiality.
that's great responses. Uh, so, but again, as many of you mentioned, the most or the core of this particular testing was whether it was authorized or not. I mean, the first step. If we talk about the first step, so that should have been the first step, that we have to check whether the person who were acting as the signing representatives were actually authorized by the board or not, and that was not mentioned in that test step. So I did my creative thinking, and so as many of you who have put down in the comments must have creatively thought of that, because of our past experience or anything, it can be anything, but it was not there in the test step. So then I asked from the client, that I need the board resolution for all the signers. So there were around 35, 36 signers, including 18 company employees and 18 third party signers. For company employees, fortunately, as you all mentioned, there was that the board resolutions were there, because without it there is no signing power given to him. So there were board resolutions, there were signing limits, as you all mentioned in the comments, in the chat box, that yes, it was all there. But for the 18, out of 18 third party signers, the resolution was there only for 3 people. The 15 belonging to Kala region. Kala is basically Colombia, Argentina, Chile, and so on countries. So that consists of Kala. So 15 of that third-party signers were from Kala countries, and for them there were no authorizations, and they were acting on behalf of that company as a signer. So being a signer means you can sign on the check, you can add a new signer, remove existing signer. So it comes with a lot of power, and that was not there, and that was missing. So because of our creative thinking, because I thought out of the box, and many of you, as you mentioned in the chat box, that you also thought out of the box, and that's why we came to this thing that there needs to be a board resolution. If I didn't think out of the box, or beyond the test steps that were already mentioned, if I was just doing the normal checking activity and what was there in the test step, so what was there in the test step already, it was being performed by that treasurer. But because of my creative thinking, I thought out of the box, and that led to driving progress of my team, the corporate security and the internal audit team, because of the creative thinking. And I came up with this new recommendation that there needs to be a board resolution, and that was a high risk area. How can someone give away a signing power to anyone without a board resolution? Now when we think of when we talk about creativity, so in creativity there are two ways of thinking. So there is divergent and convergent, and they are interrelated, and they are related to each other. I'll tell you how. So imagine a funnel. So if you see funnel, it has it has a wide mouth at the top, and then it shrinks. So that is how a funnel is, right? You all must be imagining the funnel now. So the divergent is the top of the funnel, and convergent is the bottom of the funnel, right? So in divergent and convergent that we are talking about, so in divergent what we have is there are multiple ideas. So there are multiple ideas that we can think of. So suppose if I take an example of sampling for a PR or a PO, sampling out of PO. So there can be a multiple ideas that we can think of. One is Pareto analysis that we all do. Then, as I mentioned previously, there is same supplier, different rates in the same month for the same material. Then came the same material, different supplier, different rates, or same material, different suppliers, same rate in different months. So this is how. So if we think creatively, there can be multiple ideas. So all these ideas are for PO selection. And when I filter it down, so if I remove, let's say, I can put on more. So something like that. If I have to select, I won't be ignoring a low value items. People, when we do the Pareto analysis, we tend to ignore the low value items because it's hardly a few rupees, a few thousand rupees. So if I go with the divergent thinking, I could take it into consideration as well. And so there are multiple ideas that we can think of that is divergent. Then we narrow down those ideas on those ideas, and that is convergent. So and then we come up with the best one to find a best solution. So for instance, for taking out the PO samples out of all those ideas that I generated. So let's say we are doing an audit of a company who is into metal and minings, and they are producing something which consists of metals, right? So metal parts. Let's say a manufacturing industry is there, a heavy manufacturing industry whose finished products are based out of, or manufactured from metals. So we can take an example of, let's say if we are selecting the sample, we can take an example of the same material, same supplier and different rates, and same material, different suppliers, different rates, and we can choose our samples around that. So that is convergent, and that was divergent. The goal in divergent thinking is we explore different options, we expand options, we explore creativity. What are the ways that we can perform a particular operation? So we can, when we do the sampling of a PO, out of these all things that are there, what we can think of. Then convergent is what we actually perform, what we come down to. Now the approach in divergent is it is open-ended question. We do a lot of brainstorming, what if questions. That is divergent. In convergent, so in divergent, everything is raw. It was not structured. When we come to divergent, the end of the funnel, it is more structured, analytical, and helps us in making the decision. Now, example, instead of brainstorming ways to automate audit process, the example that we took is of selecting a PO sample. So the different ways in which we can select a sample, that is divergent, and what we are actually taking into consideration is again convergent thinking. Now there are tools that can help us in creative thinking. So there is mind mapping, scamper, and idea speedrun when we come to divergent thinking. When we come to convergent thinking, there is SWOT analysis, feasibility studies, and risk assessment, which we are going to cover in detail in the next slides. Now there is this creative curve. It has been a lot talked about. So if you'll notice, creativity is not random. It follows a pattern. So when to have creativity, there needs to be a pattern. There is a creative curve. So there are four stages of creative curve. Number one is consumption. When we have to think creatively and to have creativity, you need to consume creativity. So many of us are using Instagrams, and there's a lot of brain rotting reels that we are seeing. So our algorithm, or the feed that comes into our reel, is what we are liking the post or sharing the post. That kinds of reels will be fed with. So so when we talk about creative thinking, whatever ideas you will see, that kind of ideas or ideas related to that particular topic will be generated in your mind. So that is consumption. Now second is imitation. So a lot of startups that we see today are based on imitation. So take an example of Ola, that was copied from Uber. Take an example of Zomato. Zomato was copied from some startup based out of China and US. Now we have Oyo, which is again a copy from Airbnb. So copying is not incorrect, or but you have in order to have that particular copying mechanism, you need to have the creative ideas. If you don't know what is happening around us, around the world, you won't be having some kind of creative curve or creative idea. And if we want to relate it with us chartered accountants, so I'm not saying that we are not competent enough to discover something of our own, or build something scratch. So there is this founder of Stockswith. He is also a chartered accountant. Then Motilal Oswal, again a chartered accountant. The Times Group, again a chartered accountant. So there are people who have built something new from the scratch. But again, to make it relatable to the wider audience, the creativity, we can use creativity in our day to day life as well. For instance, as low as selecting a sample, or helping a client with restructuring their ERP tools, or giving them some additional data, telling them what all is happening in the industry they are dealing with. This is all around the creativity, because you are thinking outside of the box. We are coming outside of our comfort zone. Now, creation. So there is consumption, imitation, and then there is creation. So creation is when we add our unique twist to the existing ideas. So take an example of Flipkart. And so Flipkart, as we all know, it was an idea copied from Amazon. But how Flipkart was created in India, it twisted to our Indian authenticity. So people were not willing to pay in advance for a product, so they launched the cash on delivery option. So that is creation. Because imitation also needs some kind of brain. You can't copy and paste 100% from someone. So there needs to be something of your own, and that was COD for Flipkart. Now, iteration is refined through feedback and practice. So as you all know, in the consumer segment space, whenever you have some kind of delivery, whenever you order some product, there is a feedback option. So people want to know feedback because they want to improve their services, and basis that feedback only, the services can be improved. The processes can be redefined, it could be made better. So how the creative curve works. So the creativity comes from so creativity is somewhere between familiarity and novelty. So these two are brothers. So suppose, take an example of familiarity. If you are familiar with the topic, you will be in your comfort zone. And if there is novelty, it will be too too new for you. So novelty is something new, so you won't chatter into that unknown space until and unless you are comfortable, because you are there in your comfortable space. So creativity comes between these two, familiarity and novelty. So there is something that you are familiar with but not that familiar, and there is something that is new to you but not that new. So creativity is the sweet spot between these two, familiarity and novelty. Now, coming to the topic of the thinking techniques, creative thinking techniques. So these are the techniques that we gonna talk about. I just want to know from you all what kind of techniques you use in your day-to-day life while performing your day-to-day operation, tasks, or activities. What kind of creative thinking techniques you use? Please put it in the box.
Sir, haven't received any responses yet.
Hmm. We can wait for a minute, I guess. More. I guess we can move ahead now. There has been a
Yes,
mistake.
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So, as you can see on the screen, so there are this four creative thinking techniques. There can be other techniques as well, but these four are the more talked about. So there is Scamper. Scamper is the full form, or Scamper stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and rearrange. So these are the techniques that people use for creative thinking. So for instance, substitute. So for creative thinking, suppose we are using a pencil. So is there a substitute for that? Think of it. Or if we are working on, let's say, spreadsheet. So, the problem with the spreadsheet, uh, what we generally face is, so first thing, after having a lot of data, it becomes slow. Whether you are using it in binary, or binary works, converting that Excel spreadsheet into binary works up to a certain extent. Again, macros also works up to a certain extent. But once you have enough data and the rows and columns are exhausted, you can no longer work into spreadsheet. So what's the substitute for that? Then there comes SQL, then there comes Python. There is no limit, and you can modify data freely. You can modify up to your willingness, up to your likeliness, like you want to play with that data. So the substitute for Excel is SQL and Python. Now for combine, so suppose you have the data, and how creative thinking, how we can relate creative thinking with this combine aspect of Scamper. So by combining, let's say, two sets of data, are we creating something new, or are we creating something that Mhm. Sure.
So the question is brainstorming 5 ways to reach root cause.
So is it a question, or they want me to um, so
I guess they want to ask you how to reach the root cause.
okay, sure. So when we talk about brainstorming on 5 ways to reach out the root cause, so we recently, so when I am working in this corporate setup from the consulting firm, so a lot of emphasis. So there is a difference when you are working in consulting and when you are working on industry. So when in consulting we put a root cause, we don't put out more brains on why it happened actually. I mean, root cause is there, but there are few ways in which you can do the root cause analysis. There is fishbone, which is more talked about. So in fishbone, imagine a fish. Now it has its head, that is the root cause, and then there are fins that is spread out. So we have to peel off each layer. So there can be multiple root cause, but we have to come to the main root cause. So that is one structure, that is fishbone, that we talk about. So now what I was talking, that in consulting we write the root cause. That for instance, if let's say PO authorization. So there was so I'll take an example. What was happening is
Sir, initially, whatever you spoke, it got lost in the network issue.
okay, okay. So I'll continue. Yeah. So there was this query. So we were auditing this particular XYZ client, and so as you all know, there is the PO works on delegation of authority. So for instance, if there is a purchase order of, let's say, 5 lakh rupees, 10 lakh rupees, 15 lakh, and 20 lakh. So these are the four slabs. Then the signing authority or the approving authority will be based on these four slabs. So for instance, if a PO of up to 5 lakh is to be approved, it will be, let's say, approved by the deputy manager can approve. Then if it's 10 lakh, senior manager, 15 lakh, the vice president, 20 lakh, the CEO or CFO will have to approve, something like that. So there was this setup. So we were doing a fraud investigation of that in that company around a particular employee or a particular vendor. So we come to know that employee was also involved in that, but it was around a particular vendor. So we were doing that. So there was this service PO, and that service PO was continuously, amended. So and it was not being sent to the, so initially that PO was for, let's say, 4 lakh rupees. So that could be approved by the deputy manager. But again, then it was renewed next month for 2 month service. The cost was, the PO order should have been like 8 lakh rupees. So it should technically have been went to the, let's say, senior manager. But it was not going to the senior manager. It was staying with the deputy manager only, because there was this modification in the service PO, which was not working as fine as it was in the purchase orders or the goods PO. uh, that any kind of approval was not, so any kind of modification, if we are doing any kind of modification in the PO, it was again going to the approver only, the initial approver. So what was the root cause? So initially we thought of the root cause as a system error. So it could be a system error, that system was not planned that way. It could be a root cause. There is another example that we can think of. What we mostly You must have noticed, what we mostly put into example is system limitation or inefficiency of employees. So there's a common question, so my CAE told me that I don't want this inefficiency of employees as a root cause. Find out the real root cause. I mean, inefficiency of an employee is not a root cause. For instance, this PO was to be approved by senior manager and it was not approved, or it was approved after that PO went through. So it was a retrospective approval. So the root cause cannot be inefficiency of employees. So we use this fishbone structure, and the root cause come to know that he was not able to approve that PO because he went on a vacation. Okay, but that again can't be a root cause because he went on a vacation. Now the second thing that comes to our mind is, so we went to the next root cause. He went on to the vacation, so someone else should have approved. So someone else should have the delegation of authority to approve in absence of that person. It was not there. Why it was not there? Because it was not in the policy itself. So it was not in the policy itself is a root cause. So this is how we do. This is how we find out the actual root cause. So if I was in consulting, I could have been stopped at inefficiency of employees, that he didn't approve it. But when I came to industry, and had a discussion with my CAE, CAE is Chief Audit Executive, or we can say internal audit head. So she clearly told me that this is not inefficiency of employees can't be a root cause. We have to find the actual root cause, and the actual root cause was, it was not in the delegation of authority matrix who to approve once that particular person is on vacation or he is not there. So this is how we can do the root cause analysis. And this is who the five whys is: when, where, why, how, what. So this is how we do. So why it happened, what actually happened, and why it happened, and what happened, and then how it happened. So this is how we do the root cause analysis. Okay, I'll again continue. So we were talking about the creative thinking techniques. So there is this scamper technique. Then there is design thinking. So design thinking is think of a prototype. So like talked about the Dyson. So as of Dyson, so think of Dyson before making actually a real vacuum cleaner. He developed a prototype. So he developed before developing a prototype, we do some kind of, people use CAD software to do the designing. A lot of automobile companies use that CAD software before designing an actual, let's say Tata Nano. It would have been drawn on a computer. It would have been drawn on a sheet before realizing it in actual. So that is design thinking. We think it in our mind, some kind of visualization, you can say. Now there are six thinking hats which was developed by Edward de Bono. So there are six hats. There is white hat, black, yellow, green, and blue, and each of these hats means a different thing. So for instance, if we want to relate with our CA fraternity, so take an example of a data. So suppose we have a data, let's say of, I'll relate it with a recent example that I'd encountered. So there we were doing an ENO analysis. So ENO is excess and obsolete. So this analysis was being performed around inventory. So we were doing audit of a company which were high on inventory, and excess and obsolete is like based. So that excess and obsolete calculation was based on 18 months forward demand for that particular product. So if there was no foreseen demand for, let's say, 18 months forward from now, so that was moved into obsolete because it was excess, and then obsolete because there was no foreseeable demand. So this is how ENO calculation was there. So what data do we have? We had that excess and obsolete calculation sheet. Now black is what could go wrong. So what could go wrong is, first thing is that, the data that we have, the excess and obsolete calculation, it could have not been performed uh, like what it should have been. So there could be chances of error, or there can be misjudgment, because excess and obsolete calculation involves a lot of judgment, and whenever there is judgment involved, there are high chances that mistake could happen. Now yellow is, what benefit will this approach bring? So ENO, so if we re-engineer that while you are auditing that ENO analysis, what we are independently performing that ENO analysis, so that directly impacts the bottom line, the profit and loss of a particular company, of any company, that ENO analysis. So what benefit this approach will bring? It could lead to, if there is overstatement or understatement of that reserve, we can correct it. Now green is any creative ways to reduce client burden. For instance, so I'll change this example, making it more relevant from the current example that we are taking. So are there any creative ways to do that? So instead of performing it manually in the spreadsheet, I used SQL, and we did analysis around that. And blue is, how do we structure the discussion? So what we noted is, uh, so excess and obsolete calculation was being performed. What we noted is, there was so that was an European MNC, and as you all know, Russia was sanctioned by the European Union. So a lot of demand was there from Russia, and it was like 5 years back. And again, while doing the performing the ENO calculation, they were accounting for that demand from Russia still. Ideally they should have removed it, because now Russia is a sanctioned country, and in a foreseeable future, like 4 or 5 years now, or 4 or 5 years down the line, there is no visibility that this demand could be fulfilled for Russia. So ideally that should have been removed from that ENO analysis, because there was no visibility that this demand could be fulfilled on that particular demand for Russia, right? So when we perform the analysis, yeah, hello. So there was so what they should have done ideally is to remove that demand of Russia from that calculation. it should have been taken into zero demand because there was no foreseeable demand from Russia. Now the kind of product that they were making, it was a customized product. So if I am so the kind of modules that they were manufacturing, that was customer specific. So the obsolescence or the reserve has to be calculated on that whole of the demand. It was not there. So when we reviewed, we told them that this was not taken into consideration, and they were also amazed because because it was a manual spreadsheet, they forget to update it or remove it, and no one bothered to update it, and that led to around 20 million something of excess provision, which led an impact into their profitability for the upcoming quarter. So this is how we can use the six thinking hats, whenever we have a data set. So we can, basis the six questions, we can ask ourselves what could go wrong, what data we have, how can we perform it better or make it better, which helps us with the creative answer. Another thing we have is blue ocean strategy. So blue ocean strategy, as you all know, the ocean is vast. So ocean represents here the amount of opportunities that one have. So if we talk about our profession and for the practicing chartered accountants, there are a lot of chartered accountants who are practicing into, let's say, audit or taxation. So the market is abundant with such chartered accountants who are practicing into those domains. Now, when we talk about blue ocean strategy, uh, the aim here is to create or charter into that unknown territories or unknown water, like for instance ESG space, or AI space, or tech enablement space, or continuous auditing space. So these are the uncharted territories as of now which I can think of. Maybe people attending this webinar could think of something more, and it is good to charter into those uncharted territories, because they are uncharted as of now. No one has tapped that market. So when we talk about blue ocean strategy, we create an uncontested market space instead of competing in the crowded market. Now these are some of the characteristics of creative thinkers that you can see on the screen. I want to know from the audience attending this webinar today, what do you think of yourself? So do you think yourself as creative? If yes, what leads you to believe that you are a creative thinker? Please put it into the question or chat box.
Sir, there is a response. A CA is always a creative thinker.
That's correct. But we are talking about the characteristics. So if you think yourself or think of us as a fraternity that we are creative thinkers, no doubt we are, because audit involves a lot of creativity. Audit or investigation involves a lot of creativity. But I just want to know from you all, what led you to believe that we are creative thinkers or you are creative thinkers? If you could give us an example.
Sir, until the responses are coming in, I have personally the stories we listen to or we hear to while gathering the audit evidence is what lead us to eventually creative thinking to the next audit assignment.
Uh, right. Connecting the dots, you mean, right?
Yes, yes, sir, yes.
And relating. Yeah, that's one way. So while the people are putting their comments in the chat, we can move on with the characteristics of the creative thinkers. So first thing is curiosity and the thirst for knowledge. So uh, whenever you feel like that I don't know anything, or how less I know, when you speak to a person or speak to someone, let's say if I'm doing an internal audit of a company, and when I speak to a process owner with, let's say, 15 or 20, 25 plus years of experience, and I admire them, admire their knowledge, and I'm thirsty for knowledge. We are thirsty for knowledge when we look at a person speaking, someone knowledgeable. With curiosity we look at them because there is so much to learn from them. And when you have this feeling, that curiosity or the thirst for knowledge, just remember that you are on the right path, that you are a creative thinker, because curiosity and thirst for knowledge are the basics for being a creative thinker. Because without creativity, without curiosity, there can't be creativity.
So we
So
have got a few responses.
yeah.
Uh, Someone said, "What led me creative thinking is to do same thing for life, where success percentage is less than 5%. Example: stocks, derivatives, trading." Someone said, "Apart from finance side, we take part in business meeting and provide solutions for warehousing management, supply chain issue setting, new warehouse strategy, and our approach to a problem is highly analytical."
Yeah, that is great. I mean, this warehousing aspect, this is great. This is what real consulting is about. Great to hear that, these responses. So I'll continue with what we were discussing. So there is curiosity. If you are curious to know more, learn more, and there is thirst for knowledge, just remember, we are on the right path of being a creative thinker. So curiosity and thirst for knowledge should never die. So whenever I talk to process owner, so there are two ways when we do the discussion with the process owner, the kickoff discussion, or whenever, let's say, I'm doing the procurement to pay audit from an internal audit point of view. And so there are two ways of handling a discussion. First thing is I tell them how a process is being how a particular process should be performed, let's say procure to pay. The other is, hearing firsthand from them, how do you perform a process? I mean, I have the policy and procedure of your company, of procure to pay process, how it should be performed, but I want to understand firsthand from you how you are performing a process. So that is curiosity, that is thirst for knowledge. Maybe he is able to tell us something that will help us, when we are facing some other client. Maybe he tells us something that is not in the policy and procedure, but he is performing, again, an improvement opportunity, that policy and procedure is not updated. Or it can be vice versa. Now the second, among the curiosity and thirst for knowledge, so there are whys, the 5 W's, or the constant whys, why it is happening this way, what if we do it this way, what if it was not there. So this is how we do the control assessment. So what if this particular control was not there, what will be the risk. So what if this preventive control is not there, what are the detective steps that we can take, or detective controls are there. So what if is what makes us curious. So what if should never die. Then, people should explore beyond their domain. So this is something that I can relate with. When I was doing my articleship, majority, so out of 3 years, 2 years, or around 2 years, it was into statutory audit. So in statutory audit, we revolved around finance. We sit with the finance stakeholders only. Any kind of data requirement, any kind of queries, we were just with the finance stakeholder. I did one and two or three odd assignments of the internal audit of some PSU listed private companies. And then this curiosity within me, it was there. So I wanted to know more. I wanted to. So finance, we know because we have studied and everything. I wanted to know how a particular process is being performed. If they are manufacturing, so there is BOM, bill of material, not the actual BOM. So bill of material. So we audited bill of material, whether everything that should be there on a bill of material was there or not. And if they were accounting from this for the scrap or wastages, many a times people don't. So then there's a concept of back flushing. Then when they are so whenever you sit with the production, or let's say a specific department head, they will tell you more about how their department operates. For instance, there is this manufacturing company. If you talk to their process owners, or like someone mentioned, the warehousing consulting part, so if you speak to them, they will tell you about, apart from finance. So for instance, a particular, let's say, what to take, so there is a router, for instance, there is a router, or you have seen ETP and STP, so effluent treatment plant and sewage treatment plant. So while in KPMG, I audited a company that were manufacturing these modules, which were installed in the ETP and STP. So when you speak to the engineers, when we are auditing the production process, so they told us about all these 20 psi or 200 psi, that it has to this particular module, once it is manufactured, it has to go into pressure testing for 20 psi, 200 psi. Then I googled it, what is 20 psi. Sometimes I even ask the process owners, what is this psi. Then I got to know that is a air pressure benchmark. So that is a term used while doing the air pressure testing. So then there is centripetal and centrifugal force that we have studied in our schools, but it was actually being applied there in that module. So this is how ETP and STP works. So that module is particular decanter. So decanters were used in the ETP and STP, and it was used basis that centrifugal force. Then again, in the dairy industry, they are you extensively used to separate butter from milk. So again, all of the so until and unless you are not curious or thirsty for knowledge, you will do this routine routine audit. So there will be no improvement opportunities, or again there will be copy pasting of the observations from last year's, or let's say from other companies to this company, until unless we are not creative. And creativity comes from reading, observing, learning from diverse fields. Now second point is openness to new idea and perspective. So so let's say we have audited procure to pay process extensively across all the industries, all the clients. But if we have that fixed setup in mind, that procure to pay process should be should follow these XYZ steps, or on these lines only, so there will be no openness to new ideas. So if client is saying how they are performing their procure to pay process, so we have already embedded in our mind that how a procure to pay process should look like. And if they are not performing around that, then there is an issue or observation we will draft. But we have to understand what they are doing differently. Is it okay to deviate from the standard procure to pay process, or is it something that they are doing which is different from the standard procure to pay process, which we can help other clients to implement? So until and unless there is no openness to new ideas or perspective, there won't be a creative thinking. So someone who have this creative thinking attitude, so they are always open to new ideas and perspective. They embrace different viewpoints or challenge assumptions. For instance, there is a person who is at a managerial level, doesn't mean that he can't learn from his associate, or let's say article or partner. So anyone can teach us anything. We just need to be open for new ideas, and always willing to listen and adapt to. Now there is resilience and willingness to fail. So again, I'll link it with the example of Dyson that we just talked about in the previous slide. So Dyson was born into existence because the Dyson vacuum cleaner, or Dyson industry, Dyson company as a whole, because as we discussed, there were around 5,000 something prototypes that he made before actual Dyson vacuum cleaner was there. So if he would have stopped on, let's say, the 20th trial or 50th trial or 100th trial, Dyson vacuum cleaner would not have been today.
So
And
someone said crude process is best example of process industry.
again, which process?
Crude process.
Okay. Now again, if he was not resilient, or he was not there was a fear of if he had been afraid of failures, so he would have stopped at, let's say, hundreds or thousands prototype. But he went on until and unless he built that actual machine, that actual vacuum cleaner. So that is being resilient, or open to failures. because people learn from setbacks and learn from mistakes. So there is a fantastic example that we all can relate with. So again, back in my KPMG days, we were doing this data analytics for a client. So all of you must know, who all have performed the data analytics. Whenever we perform data analytics, there are two terms that are widely used. There is false positive and false negative, right? So while performing a data analytics, we were trying to find ghost employee instances, because there was we got to know from a whistleblower that there is a ghost employee cases. So there were coming a lot of false positives and of false negatives because of the kind of data that we are dealing with. So if we would have stopped at, let's say, 30 trial or 50 trial, we would not have gotten the end results. I mean, failure is not something that we stop when being a chartered accountant. We should not be afraid of fear of failure. I mean, except for the rankers or the first time chartered accountants, we all have faced setbacks. And because of our persistent and readiness, and because of our resilient attitude, we are all chartered accountants today. And for those students who are for our CA students, if you be resilient, if you are willing to fail, then you will again pass, because success come to those who are not afraid of failures. And it's no and it's nothing like we are failing constantly and we are not learning. So that is not a characteristic of creative thinker. So after every setback, we need to evaluate what went wrong. We need to have the why questions, the W questions, that why went wrong, what could have happened differently, what could I have done differently. And that make us creative, and from that new ideas born into, and from that we learn something new. Then there is ability to connect unrelated concepts. So as we all have studied into in our CA curriculum, while doing the analytical procedure. So if for instance, if sales is increasing and the cost is increasing, it makes sense. But sales is shrinking and cost, COGS is increasing, doesn't make sense. So this is ability to connect unrelated concepts. So again, so this is related. Unrelated could be the headcounts, or the operational expenses, the fixed costs, that are unrelated, because we all know about the economies of scale. So up to a certain extent, that economies of scale will remain constant. And if you keep in mind all these that we discussed, it will help you in being creative thinker, and that will help you in a long way, in a long run. Now, talking about techniques to boost creative thinking, in addition to what we discussed in the previous slides. So there is brainstorming and mind mapping technique. So in brainstorming, what we do is, we think we think and generate as many ideas as possible. We write it down, we jot it down on the paper without judgment, and then we organize it, we recollect it. So that is brainstorming. And why it works, because while doing the brainstorming, many ideas come to our mind, and then we start eliminating the unrelated ideas, and then we or what we can do is we build connection between those ideas. Now, second is role playing and perspective shifting. This is an important aspect that helps in creative thinking. So, whenever we are doing auditing, for instance, or whenever we are having a discussion with the client, when we put ourselves into client's shoes or someone else's shoes, let's say our boss or our manager, and when we think from their angle, we could see things differently, and that could lead to a creative thinking. There could be something that I being a performer, or I being as a consultant couldn't see what a client can see. So when we do the role playing as if putting ourselves into their shoes, we would come with a new idea, and that leads to a creative thinking. Now, the last but not the least, meditation and mindfulness. So meditation is a must to do, and I'll request all of you who are attending the webinar today. Meditation is an impactful technique. So meditation along with visualization, because it calms your mind, it sharpens your mind, it boosts creative thinking altogether, this meditation part. And everyone should do as much as meditation as you can do. Let's say it be 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour, it depends. But Everyone should do meditation in the morning or at night, whenever you find time, but morning is the best. Now, how can we do this innovation at our personal level? How can we build our creative muscle? So first thing is generalizing ideas daily. Many a times when commuting through metro or going to the client site or commuting to the office, a lot of ideas come into our mind that this particular step could be performed differently, or I can do this analysis, or this is something that could be helpful for our client, or this is something that could help my company scale up. And that ideas, if not captured timely, is lost because our mind thinks non-stop 24/7. So whenever you come to know of any idea, just jot it down, whether it is in your notepad or in your notes in your mobile phone. Capture it before they vanish. Now again, one more thing is to have a side project. By side projects I mean not only what you are currently doing, but you should experiment with something. So suppose a particular person is working in the finance domain. It's no harm to learn what is marketing about. So there can be a marketing team in your company, or let's say there is a people development team, the HR team. There's no harm if we could go there on a deputation, or kind of exchange knowledge between what they are doing, how they are performing things differently. And sales is some kind of skill that I wish more people knew, or I will encourage more people to go into sales. Sales as if learn sales, how it is done. Because we, at the end of the day, we are all selling ourselves, selling as if someone is going for a job, and we are carrying our CV. So CV is basically our sales profile. We are selling ourselves to that company, and we are pitching ourselves, selling as if we are pitching ourselves to a particular XYZ company where we go for interview so that they can hire us. So by side projects, I mean chartering out of your domain, what you are currently working with, chartering into the uncharted territories. Now there is skills stacking. So while skill stacking, why we should do this? Because so skill stacking is combining diverse skill that creates unique value. For instance, data analytics is a growing sector, a growing market in today's economy, right? If you can see, there is a lot of demand for data analytics. We being chartered accountants have the upper hand or the edge because we understand finances like no one else. We understand processes like no one else. We have been taught in our curriculum as well as during our articleship or post qualification. It's just we are not willing to take risk on learning let's say SQL or Python, those data analytics tool. And then because I have seen in KPMG while I was working there as a consultant, so we used to work with the people from the tech side who used to run queries from on SQL and Python, but they were not able to understand the business side, and they were not that good into SQL because SQL is basic and Python is also basic. If you'll come to learn, these two are the courses that you can learn in, let's say, a month or max 6 months. And combining this tech skills with your business process skills, you can be a good data analytics resource. So this is what I mean when I say about skill stacking. And with from this platform, this webinar, I want all the chartered accountants, all the members who have joined us today, as well as the non-members, to learn on the technical skills as well. Learn SQL, learn Python, because it's going to help you. Sampling is not only limited to what we used to do, dates back, 80/20 rule. There have been multiple, when you do SQL, when you learn SQL, when you learn Python, there are a lot of data modification tools, techniques. There are a lot of analogs that you can do. There are a lot of scripts that you can run, and limitless possibilities are there when you do in a tool. Now there is learning loops. I want to connect it with our previous example when I was talking about the data analytics and false positive and false negative. So there is learning loop. For every false positive, for every false negative, we need to understand why it was there, why it happened, and from that we need to learn. And how we can do it? We first need to apply that skill set, get feedback, improve, and then again repeat. Now, before concluding, the session for today, there is this thought: the best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas, because until and unless you don't have lots of ideas, you won't be able to filter away what's working best for you, or what is the best way to create an idea. Now, if you all have any questions and answers for today's session, please feel free to put it into the chat box, and we'll be happy to address it.
Sir, we have a few questions. First one, okay, okay. Just give me a second. Can I recite the question first?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the question is resilience and willingness to fail. How can it be applied practically in employment career, as employment career is generally envisaged as linear?
Right. What I have noticed between the working style and working structure in India as compared to foreign countries when I have been there. So, in foreign counterparts or abroad, people can charter into, let's say, if I am a CA into finance, I could move into IT if I show some curiosity or some kind of willingness. I can move into. And there are a lot of Swedish and European MNCs that are willing to give employees an opportunity. So there is this term job rotation, there is internal job posting, and you can do it, and you can show your willingness to your employers. So when we say resilience and willingness to fail, so I'll take an example. Suppose we are working on a fixed asset register. For instance, if you are in a finance team working on a FAR, fixed asset register, or the asset management team, and you are so at the outset you were working on manual spreadsheet. Now, as the company grew in size, it became difficult for you to manage that transaction in a spreadsheet, until unless you don't know what kind of softwares are out there in the market that cater to specifically fixed asset register. So there is census, then there is fixed asset management module or tool. You won't be able to suggest to your manager or to the seniors HODs that this kind of tool is there. And so this is how you need to be willingness to fail. So there can be two consequences out of this. First thing, that your idea will be accepted. There will be RFQs, and the other vendors will be given the RFQs. RFQs will be floated. There will be POC, proof of concept, to see if their idea, what they are pitching, is working or not. Until unless you do this, you are not willing to fail, and you are not learning.
Okay. Sir, moving on to the next question. It's how to develop this ability to connect unrelated concepts.
Yeah. So again, I'll again link it to the slide that I was talking about previously. So you know, creativity comes. So whatever you feed your mind, that kind of ideas your mind will generate. So if you want to have the ability to connect unrelated concept, first thing is that we need to study something apart from what we have been studying. So you have to study, let's say, if your interest is into law, you can pursue law. If not pursuing law, you can read more about our laws. So let's say if we were reading about income tax act or companies act, so we can read it more into detail. And so, for instance, I'll give you an example. We were doing the audit of payroll process. So if you'll know, and that company was based out of Gurgaon, so their head office was in Gurugram, Haryana. So there are two acts primarily related to the payroll when it comes to payroll. So until and unless there is no, so I'll tell you how we can develop this ability to connect. First thing is curiosity. You need to have that curiosity. So how people perform the payroll audit. They will take on the data, muster roll, attendance, leave. We will check the calculation, if there, I mean, leaves have been accounted for in the books or not. And then payroll is processed as per their biometric or attendance, right? Then ESI and PF deduction, everything is there, right? This is one thing. Second thing is relating this payroll to the rules and regulations. So there is Factory Act 1948. There is it states Shop and Establishment Act. For instance, for Haryana, there is Punjab Shop and Establishment Act of 1958. So it relates. You can relate it to it because, so for instance, what I did, I related it. So I noticed that there is a limit of 48 hours a week that employees can work. So if any employee is working above 48 hours a week, the company needs to pay them overtime, uh, 2x of their salary. So it was there in the Factories Act 1948 as well as in the State Shop and Establishment Act. So I related it. And how I analyzed it, apart from all that data, what I did is I collected the timesheet submission. And for a particular month, I did the pivot, I used SQL and spreadsheet as well. Initially spreadsheet, then pivot, and then SQL. And then I checked on whether a particular employee was working for more than 48 hours a week. And there were like around 240 cases, 240 employees that were working for more than 48 hours a week. So this is how you develop creative thinking, and this is how you develop ability to connect, because until unless you don't have the why, the what if, you know you don't have the hunger for excellence, or until unless you question yourself that there is so much to learn and I know so much less, it won't come to you. And if you want it to come to you, you need to have that hunger. This is how it comes.
Thank you, sir. Now, next question is: does mind puzzles activities like bringing harmony uh, between right and left part of brains related or unrelated to build creative muscle?
Yes, they will. So I'll tell you how. So, like I mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, we are on an autopilot mode. So there is literally what I can say. So many a times what happens is we are on the autopilot mode. We are waking up, scrolling reels, going into the bathroom, brushing. So if you want to, do things creatively, so instead of, like, I am a left hander, so if I brush with my left hand, I can use my right hand. So that time my brain will be active, it won't be on a autopilot mode, because my right hand won't be as effective while brushing as my left hand will be. So this is how you can trigger, or you can make your brain active while performing a task.
Okay. Thank you,
Do we
sir.
have some more questions, or?
No, sir. I guess let me check once. No, sir. We don't have any more questions. If you allow, we may conclude the session.
Right. Before concluding the session, I just want to impart two things that I learned, and that's there in my organization. And through this webinar, I'll request, if they are chartered accountants, or who are at a level where, at an HOD level, for instance, from where they can dictate. So Google has a beautiful rule of 20%. So there is a 20% rule in Google. So employees 20% of the time they can work on their self development as if thinking outside of the box. Similar to that, we have this professional development day in our organization. So once one day in a month is reserved for our professional development, where we need to think creatively or something like that. So this is something that organizations can adopt in their workplace as well. Yeah,
Very, very nicely put, sir. Uh, Now, shall we conclude the session?
sure.
Thanks a lot, sir. It was very engaging, and we really had to think outside the box actually in your session. So now I would like to cast my vote of thanks. It has been such an honor to be a part of this wonderful webcast on Ignite Innovation, Transform Your Ideas with Creative Thinking, organized by the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee (ICI). On behalf of the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee (ICAI), we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, C. Rakesh Singh, for his enlightening session, and a wide round of applause and thanks to the organizers, Professional Skills Enrichment Committee (ICI), our today's speaker, C. Rakesh Singh, and other stakeholders who made this webcast a memorable one. Finally, we would like to thank all of you present here and helping us making this webcast a grand success. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Have a
Thank you,
good day,
Manish
sir.
ji. Thank you, Millie.